Okay.
So I'm just like, yeah, I just about walked over to work.
Okay, they just wanted to know
All
that
right.
there was some kind of confirmation,
We're thinking of you.
so they know what to do. All right.
Frank,
All right.
turn the other light off.
Turn them on.
Sure.
Okay, so
Sorry, I was-
thank you. So, I'll tell you what, if we lose Elana, because she says a lot of times she has interference, and we know the interference we have, I have her number. So I'll give her her number. Here's her number. Maybe, can you pass this over to Cindy? And would you give her a call? That would
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Laurie sent out an email and asked everyone to watch this David Icke video. And in case everyone didn't, I'm just going to show a very brief segment on it, like for 3 minutes. It's really very critical. So here we go.
Same with all these symbols and numerological
He's
manipulation.
talking about Saturn.
The sound and the symbol are different expressions of the same thing. Thus, if we, in the holographic realm, are constantly bombarded with these symbols, it is on an energetic level feeding us the frequency field of what they represent. And Saturn, when described pre-cataclysmic, didn't have rings. So where'd they come from? Well, maybe it had rings, but it weren't rings we could see. You can see them now. Well, this guy, Norman Berggren, has a long, he's in his 90s now, I think. He has a long, long history in space research, technological research, going way back. And his life changed when he started studying the pictures that came back from the Voyager 1 and 2 space expeditions to Saturn. They arrived in 1980-81. Because when he studied them, he realized there was something very strange about Saturn's rings. And he said this in his book, The Ringmakers of Saturn. Several years ago, a number of folks in the astrology and astronomy and physics world began theorizing that these rings had to be much younger than the universe, perhaps only about 100 million years old. But one pair of pictures shows a change in 5 minutes. An impression is conveyed that the latest reported measurements purport to be the true ones, when in reality all might quite nearly be correct at the time of observation. General reluctance to accept variable ring system geometry occurs because of apparent failure to identify a physical mechanism suitable for producing recurrent change. In other words, classic mainstream science, if we can't explain it, we'll kid ourselves it doesn't exist. And he also found these in the pictures coming back from Voyager, and the Cassini ones found them too. And he calls them electromagnetic vehicles, and they are massive. Some of them several times bigger than the Earth. But again, we need to move our sense of perception. In terms of size representation, this is the Earth against the size of Saturn. They're not talking the same perception of big in terms of outside of the Earth. And here are some of the other pictures of these electromagnetic vehicles picked up by these NASA craft. Why aren't they all in the papers being talked about? You'd think, what the hell is this? No, nothing. Thanks to Berggren, we've seen their existence. This is the Hubble telescope has picked one of them up. Look at the size of the bloody thing. And here's a few Cassini spacecraft pictures, still pictures put together. What the hell is that? Exactly what Berggren was describing from Voyager. And this is the other thing. He found pictures of stuff spewing out of these electromagnetic vehicles into the rings of Saturn and bloody making them, or extending them. And what is said to be in the rings of Saturn, I guess thus that's why we can see them, is like ice and stuff.
And pretty fascinating, huh? And one, yeah, right, exactly. It took my breath away too. One more in case we get to this. These are...
It looks like your average city skyline, but in fact, these images are just an elaborate optical illusion. The amazing mirage appeared over Huangshan City in East China at dusk on Thursday. Following a heavy downpour, the spectacular images of mountains, buildings and trees appeared in the thin mist above the Shinhan River. The phenomenon began at about 5 p.m. local time, to the amazement of passers-by.
It's really amazing. It looks like a scene in the movie, in a fairyland.
Although residents say that similar sights have been seen lately, most agreed that this one had been the most impressive.
Okay.
Was that from like a nearby city that was mirroring onto the fog?
No, that's because of the chemtrails and because of the ionized plasma now. All this stuff can be holographically created. So I'm hoping we'll get to talk about that, but I wanted you guys to have an image of it in your mind. Right. Yeah, before. Okay, so I think we're ready to call Elana. And here we go. Oh, should I have done the video part? Look, I put no video. That was my fault, right? I should have did video?
You should be able to change it, just click onto it.
The video has a line through it.
Hello.
Hello, we're here.
Okay.
Tell you you have to do it again.
I think I have to do it again because I mistakenly just did the phone one and not the video.
Okay.
So do I have to hang up and do it all over? Is there any way I
You should be
can't?
able to just hit the camera.
Wait, maybe I'm doing the camera icon. Let's see what happens. Can you see me?
Yeah, can you see me?
No. How come we can't see Elana? Who's this guy?
Oh wait, I see. Nope.
It's
I
you?
got it.
It's you?
Yep.
There you are! All right, yay! Hello.
Hello.
All right, hello, Elana, and welcome to South Jersey's study of alternative realities, September meeting in the Cinnamon Library, and we are geographically situated in the shadows of both Langley and McGuire Air Force Base near Trenton. You know that area. So many of us are sadly all too familiar with the chemtrails, but we're proud to say that we have two geoengineering billboards thanks to an activist that's local near us, so that's some progress, I think. So we have a live audience here, and hopefully we'll have some really nice questions for you later on. So, so with that, I just want to get started, okay? There are so many videos of you on the web, and so I wanted to really jump in because we probably only have about 45 minutes, leaving time for questions. So I thought rather than introduce you with all your accolades, they're all over, I just wanted to say that I read your book. It's beautifully written, and it exquisitely documents all of these practices, proving their existence beyond any shadow of a doubt. So we're all looking forward to your in-depth research about the space vents, which we'll get to. But first then, so I wonder if you can recap just a bit on the latter part of the book's title, The Full Spectrum Dominance. You said that it has two sort of meanings. One is overt, that's psychological and societal. The other covert, which is more of working with the electromagnetic spectrum. So if you can elaborate on this, I think you'll establish how HAARP is now only a part of the technological matrix, the grid heaters and energy movers, and that there's now a whole compendium of devices for the continued pumping of the particulates that are now in both the upper and lower atmospheres. So, take it away.
Gosh, you did a great job there.
Well, I've been doing my homework, yeah.
You have. I'm impressed.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the full spectrum dominance of the electromagnetic spectrum, unfortunately, most people haven't taken science since high school. At least of my readers and the people that tune into me. And we need to really look at that. We need to teach ourselves what that spectrum is so that we know we're living in a world which has invisible forces now that are moving all about us and through us. and they are having an impact on not just our physical health, but our mental health as well, and how we look at life. And that's why it's important to see that the spectrum goes all the way from radio waves to gamma waves, and what those are in there, what infrared can do, as opposed to an X-ray, as opposed to a low frequency ELF, or a high frequency microwave, high powered microwave weapon. These are all parts of our world, and if we don't want to be taken by like a thief in the night, we've got to understand what the technology is, at least to a degree by which we can understand how we are being affected and how our children and our grandchildren will be affected. And that's really why I write these books. I'm not writing for scientists. I'm writing for lay people to give them the confidence that even if you don't have a degree in plasma physics, which I certainly do not have, a PhD, and I might add that I don't know where you could go to school now and really even study this. This is cutting edge, news-breaking technology. Now, it is true, if I worked at NASA or at one of the geospatial organizations, of which they're coming out like cookies now, then I would know more, because I would be in the in crowd and I would have a need to know basis for things that now I'm having to retrofit from just sheer research and talking to different people in this movement. By the way, and you've heard me say it on other interviews, I have to commend the people who are doing this. There are people donating thousands of hours to studying this issue, and the idea that, oh, well, you can't really know anything unless you're there, that's really not true. You can know what the objectives are simply by just careful study. I don't watch television. I don't really have a personal life, sorry to say. I really love to understand my enemy and how my enemy thinks and what my enemy is up to. And that's how I feel regarding our military. It has gone rogue, and we have let it go rogue. We could perhaps have done something long ago, as Eisenhower on his way out indicated. Perhaps we could have. I find it dubious at best, because we're dealing with the defense corporations, and they are also in on this, and there is a lot of money, and as you know, we simply have to take our enemy as we find it in an era that we were ill prepared for. This is an electromagnetic era. We were not prepared for this. We were intended to just dole the money out so that others could do what they saw fit as they pursued this full spectrum dominance. Now, though, we do know. We are waking up, and we are sharing these words everywhere we can to awaken people for the sake of future generations, because this is not going to go away.
So, how could you tie in then what's happening in the atmosphere that contributes to what you're calling the space fence?
Yes, that's what I'm really engaged in now. I'm finishing the book. It's due in a week. I'm a neurotic mess.
Oh my.
Because I'm now on the third revision, and still finding errors, still finding paragraphs that are in the wrong place and that sort of thing. As you put a book together, I've put many books together because, as you know, I'm a ghostwriter as well. I work for money for people. I prostitute my writing. I have worked for people to write their stories as well for money. But I'm so glad you sent me that clip from David Icke's presentation.
Yes.
I went right to the minute that you told me to go to, and I spent about 10 minutes listening to him about Saturn and the rings of Saturn. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I was very good friends with Billy Hayes, who is known in the movement as the HAARP man. He was the head of the team that worked on the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Gakona, Alaska. And Billy is just an ace at all the technology having to do with the towers and how you build these and how you tune these phased array antennas to a hair's breadth in order to match with all the other parts of it. It's as if it's a big bell ringing in our atmosphere now. The ionosphere and the troposphere, where we are now in tune with each other, and the energy from the ionosphere is being drawn down by the ionospheric heaters, and so that when we have these media stories of global warming, we do have warming, but the warming is not from carbons, it's not from any of these other things, it's really from this military technology, ionospheric heaters, radar installations. Even the wind farms are involved. Even the hydraulic fracking is involved. Everything is tuned to resonate throughout this Earth-Moon well that we live in. And the purpose of this is multiple for different military operations. And that's what is always missing from all the geoengineering conferences, all the climate change conferences, is the magic word military. And how this can possibly be, I don't know, because we know enough about the history of the American military and NATO military to know that they have done many things to citizens. They've used citizens as guinea pigs many times. They have, I think with Rumsfeld we lost, $3 trillion or something, couldn't find it. We have a huge history of the military-industrial complex, and yet we are supposed to believe that we, the people, are at fault with our carbons, and now we're all going to get taxed. And they're going to raise money for all of their black ops, is what I assume, their black projects. When David Icke spoke of Saturn, that's what Billy Hayes really gave me, was the picture of how these rocket launches, these sounding rockets, are going up into low Earth orbit, LEO it's called, and they're spewing all of these nanoparticulates, these metals that are basically the same as what we are being sprayed with by the jets. So the chemical trails filled with nanoparticulates, heavy metals, particularly, and I would name, the ones I would name right away would be the aluminum, the barium, and strontium, yes, but I would name lithium. These are the primaries for the sounding rocket launches, especially aluminum and lithium. And they're laying it all the way up so that it's spewing over cities and over geographic areas on the way, on the rocket's way up to lower Earth orbit. But when it gets up high enough, then they are laying particularly lithium. And they're trying to get high enough that they can get a centrifugal force on it so that they can make a ring around the planet. And that's what's so Saturn-like. And the way I interpret it, and I was interested in how David Icke was interpreting it as that we are receiving broadcasts from Saturn. I thought that was very interesting because I don't know if you know, but I'm a student many years, several decades of Rudolf Steiner. And Rudolf Steiner talks about the future of the Earth and the role of the planets and the role of the stars. And I remember him talking about the rings of Saturn, and I think that it's possible that whatever that resonance coming from Saturn, and that would have to do with astronomy and astrology. That resonance has a certain frequency, and those pulses, as those frequencies are being pulsed toward our planet, is it possible that we are making, one of the purposes of this ring being made around the planet, is it possible that it is, don't mind my phone, I'm just gonna let that go. Is it possible that we are attempting to keep ourselves from receiving that broadcast from Saturn? That's what I was wondering as I was listening to him. Is this a way of, because back in the Strategic Defense Initiative, when this first came out, and really the space fence is from that, from the SDI, is it possible that they're wanting to actually shield, and that's the word they used back then, to shield us from these broadcasts from planets like Saturn, and in particular from Saturn? I think it might be possible.
I wonder now, it's possibly the time to speak a little bit about CERN in relationship to this. When I was listening to you at one point, and when you started talking about the space fence, you said there's not a lot out there on it. And so I thought, well, let's go, what is out there? So according to WikiLeaks, I found something very intriguing. So there used to be what was called the AN-FBS 133 Air Force Space Surveillance System, colloquially known as the space fence, which was a government multi-static radar system built to detect orbital objects passing over America. Lockheed Martin now has the contract to do the new space fence, which is going to have 2 points in Western Australia and 1 in the Marshall Islands. And this actually takes a band, which is called the S-band in the electromagnetic frequency range, is that correct? Mm-hmm. So when it describes in the definition what this S-band is used for, it's used for weather radar, how appropriate, surface ship radar, communication satellites like those used by NASA, and other uses such as wireless network, digital cordless telephone, but also particle accelerators may be powered by this S-band. So as soon as I read that, I have just been listening to a lot of Anthony Patch on the Kevin Baker show, and he's pretty spot on, I think, on his CERN versus AWAKE. So there's a whole new now accelerator, and it's not a large hadron collider. They have a new name for it. It's called AWAKE.
Calling from Mother Joseph Care Center. I work here in social services.
Sorry.
I just wanted to let you know that
Okay.
Could
that turn down a little bit? Is there any way you can turn that down?
I'd love to just rip it out of the wall, could I?
Take your phone off the hook.
We just want to get her a little closer to the nurse station. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, 360-493-4589. Thank you. Bye.
Whether you're typing or not.
You just take the phone off the hook so it doesn't ring.
But isn't that the way? I mean, you get on the internet and then suddenly, everybody wants to talk to you. Sorry about that.
Okay, so let's go back. So he has introduced us to this new partner to the Hadron Collider, and they're calling it AWAKE. Now what's fascinating is that AWAKE is different. It's a whole lot smaller, and rather than using electromagnetic energy as the ring collider does, it uses protons and plasma. So AWAKE generates what are called wake fields, and now this is Tesla plasma technology. So they're combining the two now, and they have a name for the two. It's called the VHEEEP, Very High Energy Electron Proton Collider. So I just dug a little deeper and heard that not only are they creating these wake fields, but then it gets even more fascinating. This awake creates something called Birkeland currents, which are actually now directed towards the southern pole of Saturn. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
Yes,
Yes.
that is interesting. I mean, I'm in touch with Anthony, and you know, I'm really happy that he's willing to advise me on S.O.A.R. And all of these. Okay, I wanted to just. You probably had it right, but I just want to go over it.
Yes.
This chemical trails thing is also plasma technology. All these clouds up there are plasma.
Yep.
We're now living in a plasma atmosphere, and we're breathing from the plasma, right? With the heavy metals and all the other things. And how I interpret S.O.A.R is definitely calibrated to the rest of all the space fence parts. Now, you were talking about how the space fence, that you know, you read the PR, and there are like these 2 spots that we have the space fence. No, we have an entire grid completely calibrated to the space fence. And the actual fence is that ring like Saturn. That's the real fence. But what we have is we have a space system which includes satellites and lasers and the ISS and everything else up in space. Plus, again, remember these spewing rockets going up there to leave this centrifugal trail that then is added to the ring. All of that is in the sky, in the atmosphere. And down here, we have the radar instruments, we have the cell towers, we have the Gwen towers, we have the fiber optics cable. We have all of these parts, all calibrated for the same resonant frequency and pulse. It's as though the entire planet is being made into a machine, which is why I call it the space fence lockdown. Now, we could all perhaps deal with that if it were only external, but because the heavy metals are on a nanoscale, are now in our bloodstream, in our tissues, in our DNA, then what we have is an entire resonant system set up to draw us into the magnetic field. And you're talking about the Birkeland currents. Those are the magnetic lines of force coming down. And the way I see S.O.A.R, and I would have to again accede to Anthony on this, is that S.O.A.R with its calibration and its pulses is now, as you were saying, it can actually is a sort of steering mechanism for that pulsation to the south pole of Saturn, as you were saying. So S.O.A.R is very big in this, and yet it takes the entire machine to do the lockdown that then I feel they're going to move us into what we call transhumanism, or enhanced humanity. And that is really the plan. And it was only when David Icke said, had that idea of Saturn broadcasting. Now I assume when he was saying that he was talking about some of those extraordinary propulsion vessels that have been seen up there. But I have a theory on that too. It's not like his. But I would say that I am entirely willing to believe that simply by the pulsation of planets, and I've known for many years that they pulse. That's what astrology is built on, and probably astronomy in some way that comes in, is tangential to astrology. That pulsation is coming in toward our planet, and it's very possible that part of the space fence, the one around the planet, is intended to block the gods, in a way, we could say, to block what has been our highest and difficult at times, the forces of this particular solar system that have been overseeing planet Earth and the human evolution going on planet Earth. I always like to quote Rudolf Steiner on this. He said that humanity is the religion of the gods. And what he means is we are the only creature I know of calibrated in our own way to resonate with the universe as a thinking, conscious being. And that makes, we are here to develop free will. A lot of us think we have free will. Well, I know very few people whose will is really free, because it takes a great deal of work and probably many incarnations in order to develop that kind of free will. But that is what is unique about us, is we are free will beings. And I would imagine, knowing the bad guys as I do now, having studied them for about 20 years, to understand how they think. That would be the global elites. These are I suppose I could call them people still. These people really have it in mind that they would like to be the gods of this planet. And so now they have come up with a system that is almost in the bag, as far as I can tell. To turn it into a huge cyber machine run by AI, and with our nervous system plugged into it. And that is how I see the space fence. It's the phase 2 of the chemtrails HAARP full spectrum dominance set up. And now they are resurrecting the space fence, because when it was under SDI years ago, they didn't have an ionized atmosphere and they couldn't sustain it. Now the atmosphere is entirely ionized, and that's why, you know, we're breathing a very different kind of heat. It's an aluminum heat where it's inside our bodies. We have microprocessors, we have sensors in our body that can be remotely stimulated, can be remotely triggered. We can be pulsed to be highly violent as a people, to be highly laissez-faire. This is a dream come true for the global elites. Now, the question is, will they, you know, as we study this, where are its weak points? And I think of, because the towers are very involved in this, as are the next reds, and then there's the ships off the shore that are making ship trails, and there's so many parts of this. Where would be the weak points? What will the weakness be in the system? Because, as we know, every drive historically, I'm a historian, every drive toward empire fails, always. But in this case, how far is this going to go? What will be the cost, the human cost? Will they reach their, I mean, you mentioned the S-band right away. You'd better start thinking genetics. You're talking about millimeters. You're talking about terawaves. These rip to shreds the DNA of people that are around them. And so we have some very dangerous waves being unleashed. We're about to have the 5G phone out here. That's terawave. You know, there is no protection, there is no warning, there is no education. It's all corporate owned, and people think that it's just for profits. Well, perhaps for most of the people who work in these corporations, even the CEOs, yes, I would agree, it's probably profit, greed, and power as usual, the usual things. But for some of these people in these corporate entities, and the corporate entities themselves that can develop a sort of collective Geist, that has its own intelligence, much as an AI computer would. And it is well known among all cyber geeks that the AI computer will be able to evolve, will be self-sustaining, will be a conscious entity that we will have to grapple with. We all know this. So the fact that corporate entities can do the same by a certain low mean of greed and power devouring, but among those will be some who are very much esotericists, and they will know exactly what they're doing, and they'll know exactly the direction that they want to send all of this machine entity, space fence machine in that direction. And that's why I think it's worth studying, to know the enemy. You know, I'm a great admirer of General George Patton. I've read just about everything about him and his autobiography. And he was, as General Rommel of the Nazi forces said, he was the greatest general that the Allied forces had. And according to Patton, he would read the Caesar's Gallic Wars. He would read every battle plan from the Gettysburg battle that took place in the Civil War. He would study the enemy. And most Americans that I encounter, I don't know why they don't want to take this up and really get hold of, and learn what the enemy is like in their consciousness, so that we can face them in that realm, because that's what we're going to have to do. This is an amazing technology. And the Space Fence book will blow your socks off, because this is way more than the chemtrails harp. So I'll stop there, sorry.
Oh, no, I think we're just here breathless. I just want to bring in something, because you're saying, I don't know why Americans, and I don't know whether it's just Americans, although many of us are not perhaps as inquisitive in the right places as we should be, perhaps, but there's a fairly recent philosophy book out called Hyper Objects by Timothy Morton, and the subtitle is Philosophy and Ecology After the End of the World. So there's even a very nice, so hyper objects is the term now that the philosophers are calling it. And his one section in there is quite fascinating, because he talks about there's something going on called phasing, where these concepts now are so gargantuan that they come in and out of our focus, that we just can't seem to get the full grasp of them, because life is so busy. How healthy are we these days? You know how much work that takes. We all do. So that these things are now at such a scale that it's so hard to hold onto them, and so they're going literally phasing in and out of our focus.
And he calls it what? The hyper object?
Hyper objects. Hyper objects.
Yeah, and I would add to that then the cognitive dissonance, of course, that we've been subjected to for over 50 years now with the television,
right.
And now the abominable iPhone, and our love of convenience and our love of comfort. All of these things have weakened our capability to hold on to a thought. This is a weakness of will in the thinking. And of course, as a student of Steiner, that's what he's known for, is how to develop your thinking so that you can grip these ideas with ferocity,
right, exactly.
And make them tell you what they are.
That's right.
That is what, that's what I do. And that's what my joy is. Because that in itself, to be that wakeful, may save some people from being completely plugged in to this machine. It doesn't have to have you watching the TV anymore. It doesn't have to have you on your iPhone. It has you because its microprocessors are swimming in your blood. Its Morgellons are swimming in your blood. Your blood-brain barrier has been breached It is in your brain. They can tweak you remotely with the pulsing of frequencies. And that's why I think consciousness is the only thing that may save us. And why I'm now pushing people to please take hold of these ideas, even if it's to read a paragraph before bed. It doesn't matter the quantity. It doesn't matter to completely immerse yourself. Who can do that? Everybody's busy. Nobody can do what I'm doing right now, dedicating hours and hours and hours. I understand that, and that's not necessary for everyone. But it is necessary to focus and take hold of ideas, particularly what are called sense-free ideas, which is like the ionosphere heater. I can't see it. I'm not up there in Alaska looking at it, or even at the Brookhaven National Lab. You're not that far from the Brookhaven. It's an ionosphere heater as well. So we don't need to be there. We do need to take hold of the details and the idea and make it speak to us so that we can start to form a larger picture of our lives. It's just not the era to simply have, I feel, a confidence and an attachment to one's personal life. I mean, when I was 19, I went to Paris to see where Henry Miller and Lawrence Durrell and Anais Nin had lived. I was going to be a great writer. I was going to be an artistic writer. And yet I live in an era of endless violence on the part of my nation's military. Endless violence. And so I had to drop my dream and pick up this, what life was telling me I had been prepared to write about. I mean, that's how I look at it. It isn't enough to simply have a personal life. We must take up a larger life. And it isn't a matter of marching in the streets and writing your congressman ad nauseum. Truthfully, I don't think those are going to do anything. What will do something is to become conscious of what our challenges are, so that then those powers that believe that humanity is their religion will respond to us and come to our need. This is how the spiritual world works. And up until recently, I haven't spoken about spiritual things because people just turned it into, some flaky New Age thing. Well, as a New Age bookstore owner told me once when I asked if she had any Rudolf Steiner books, she said, Rudolf Steiner, he's not New Age. He's old age. So, all right, so good. I'm not talking about New Age religion. I'm talking about old age religion. And it's simply consciousness itself. And Americans are such pragmatic people. I do dearly love them. I was raised by immigrants. So, to me, America's kind of outside myself, but I am an American. I was born here. They're so practical. Tell me, Elana, what I should do today to end all this. Well, I don't have those kind of pills. I don't have that kind of inside information. I can only say that if you can develop your consciousness in a tenacious way and really look at your lifestyle and say, this serves my consciousness, this doesn't, out. This does, stay. This doesn't, out. If you can do that, and really take hold of your life. To me, that's the only spiritual mobility we have now. I just know that's the way to do it, and why I'm so strong on that now in all my interviews. Yeah.
Yes, okay. We had, with something that you were saying in a little bit, we had a question about it, so
yeah.
Could you?
Yeah, hi, Elana.
Speak.
I was hoping you could elaborate when you talked about the microchips that are flowing through our bodies and the brain barrier. I mean, what do you mean by that? For people like who don't get vaccines or have no way or don't allow any mechanism for transferring that technology into your body, you know, can you elaborate on that?
Sure, gladly. All right, so back in the late 1990s and 2000s, early 2000s, my friend, the independent scientist Clifford Carnicom, was in northern New Mexico, and he was noticing all the chemtrails in the sky there, in that beautiful blue sky of the Southwest. And so he noticed that a lot of people were getting sick, and he started collecting. He had a HEPA filter on his trailer. He was collecting dew and any rain that would fall. He was examining the dust that would end up from the windstorms that are in the Southwest, and so he really started studying the particulates coming down from these chemtrails, these chemical trails, and he was able to do enough research, and you can read him yourself. He's got over 100 papers at his site, carnicominstitute.org. He was able to connect what the jets flying over and what was spewing out of their engines with what was dropping down in northern New Mexico. And when he began to really look at what was there, this was the first step, was the particulates. He could see that they were on a scale so tiny that he needed a spectroscope, that his microscope simply wouldn't do it. He needed a spectroscope. So, he had to spend a lot of energy in getting some of these tools, because he didn't have money. He was a scientist before for the DOD and for the BLM, but he had quit those and therefore had no access to their wonderful defense budgets. So that was the first step. Then when he began to examine it on a deeper level with the spectroscope, he discovered that they were all in nanoparticulates, and these nanos are the name of the game now. And we even have, they're coming out with more and more now in 2016. In the last 6 years, since 2010, they've been, mainstream media have been talking about, oh yeah, we released a billion sensors in the last month. And these sensors are all nanoscale. And with nanoscale, you're going to breathe them in. They're in the air. They're in the atmosphere. They're moving all over the place on wind currents and the jet stream and water. This is simply the way it is. And that's how you're intaking them on a primary level. Now there's a secondary level, and that's GMO foods. Now, if you study Monsanto's history and some of the other GMO providers, you'll see that these guys are in league with the chemical giants like DuPont, Monsanto, etc. They're all in league, and they're delivering chemicals laden with piggybacking various technical, genetically modified biologicals, technical sensors, technical microprocessors, that's tiny, tiny computers, all on a nano scale. And there was no law passed about the nanos. There were a few brief, oh, well, maybe it'll be dangerous. But no, the nanotechnology is now a done deal, and it is all over our environment. You're wearing clothes that have nanos in them. You step into your car, it has nanos in the upholstery. It's how it is. And that's how you've taken all of these things in. Now there's a third delivery system that's coming, and is already here actually, and that's vaccinations. That is the third delivery system. And they're going to be vaccinating, they're going to force this issue. We all have to be vaccinated. All children have to be vaccinated. And they're going to be piggybacking all manner of nanotechnology into these children's bodies. And, whoever, I guess I'll be, I'm older, I guess I'll be required to also, I don't know. But that's how it, did that make sense? Was that enough?
Yeah, I mean, so these nano computers that are in the air and the particles on our clothes and our bodies, they actually communicate with some AI system or some central computing system that can, communicate information to and from?
Exactly. And the one that was of most concern a few years ago, and now I'm amazed how silent people are on it, as if it went away, which it didn't, was the Morgellons, which Clifford Carnicom renamed the cross-domain bacteria. And the only reason I know that we all have that in us, I certainly haven't done a tally of everyone's blood and the saliva, but I was involved in Clifford's initial collections. I was one of his collections, and I've actually looked through the microscope and seen this cross-domain bacteria. And by cross-domain bacteria, that means it crosses the domains of all three major kingdoms of what is alive on the earth. And I saw them eating my red blood cells, my erythrocytes. Biology is my other undergrad degree. So that was a showstopper for me. I realized they're in me. And I don't have lesions, I'm not sick, but I think we have all breathed them in. And it would just remain for them to be remotely triggered by their own frequency, and everything has its own frequency. Every organ in your body has its own frequency. Every part of you has a different frequency. If they pulse in, then remotely, then they can trigger that. You see how it works?
Yeah, I appreciate the insight.
Yeah.
Any other questions at this point?
Yeah, how do the elite protect themselves?
How do the elite protect themselves?
Well, that's an excellent question. I've had it many times, and my guess is, and it is a guess, but an educated one. I followed the whole AIDS story. I don't know if you did, but that was also created. AIDS was created. The World Health Organization was completely complicit in that, and I assume that the elite had the antidote for their children and for themselves. And I would assume they have it for this as well. Of course, many of them, and you've probably read this in the newspapers, are building underground mansions now because they understand the nature of the age we're living in, unlike the rest of us. It's an electromagnetic era, and it makes sense to go underground. I don't think you'll be protected from everything, but it will, no doubt they're using chicken wire or copper or whatever to protect themselves from the pulsing that can, I can scare you with all kinds of things that pulsing can do, because as I said, everything has its own frequency. And you pulse that frequency, or you pulse its opposite, and things happen. So that's how I assume. I assume they have the antidote.
Thank you.
Am I hearing you saying that vaccinations shouldn't be? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I've never been a proponent of vaccinations. I was a
That's not what
Waldorf.
I asked, do you think that vaccinations are not for the public? Millions of people have been saved by those vaccinations.
Well, I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah, I'm sure it's true.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. There's not much I can say. I didn't vaccinate my children.
Most of us here have been vaccinated, and that's why a lot of us are here. I've taught chemistry for 50 years, so I know what I'm talking about. What you're saying is, I had a rough time with it.
Well, there's a lot of people now who are asking big questions about vaccinations.
Yeah, and a lot of it is based
reason.
on printing that was erroneous. The original publication about the vaccinations that were that was crap. That was all bullshit. I'm sorry, I'm having a rough time with that.
Well,
okay. That's okay.
Let me add something here. I think what you're talking about is we that got vaccinated like in the 50s or something like that.
Right.
I think what this lady's talking about is they're piggybacking other things besides the medical vaccination into these shots.
I have yet to see proof of that, and I have a rough time with that. I can't buy into that. I don't think there's that many crazy people running the country, running the world, that would allow that crap. I don't want to believe that.
They allow the planes to go up over the skies right in front of our eyes.
Yes, that's true, but that's the military's doing that. The military is not instilling stuff in the vaccinations.
They have control over the private
No, they
sector.
don't.
This is a quasi-governmental entity.
No, all right.
Yeah.
We have two, over here, yeah, please.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
You know, the sun goes through cycles in which they have
Yeah.
sunspots. Is it possible that our sun is going through a cycle where it will become a pulsar, and that the rings in which you're going around the Earth that presented information from Saturn, could that be a way of protecting us from these pulses when they do occur? And as also, as you mentioned about underground mansions,
Yeah.
the radiation.
Well, I know one thing, and I'm sure you've considered this, is that they are doing a lot of things, a lot of planetary things now that are going to have repercussions. One of the things we already have repercussions from is we have the ionosphere has big holes in it. The magnetosphere is losing power. And it is even possible that the solar minimum, which is not timely, we weren't supposed to have it now, maybe as a reaction in a natural sense, in a cyclic, balanced sense, to these planetary experiments that have been going on now for 2 decades. So the possibility that they would foresee things like pulsars, sun cycles, CMEs, and see that as part of a protective move of the space fence, that's entirely possible.
Because you know the sun must have done some tricky things as this solar system, as our solar system was developing, because some of the planets are revolving backwards, and it's either, I think it's Neptune is flipped over on its side, so it revolves sideways. It's spinning sideways, not upright.
Yeah, and the people who are doing the most in looking at the planets, along with understanding some of what is going on now regarding this technology I write about, that would be the Electric Universe people,
Right.
and the Thunderbolt Project. Are you aware of them?
No.
Yeah, they're really good, and I have a couple of NASA ex-NASA scientists are on my advisor committee for when I get stuck, and I do turn to them sometimes, and I've really been very impressed with the Electric Universe.
And the strange thing about the sun is that it's the largest object in our solar system. Large objects have great gravitational attraction, but yet the sun can spew off particles traveling almost nearly at the speed of light, and yet the self-contained gravitational pull of the sun doesn't pull them in. And there's some kind of something strange going on there. Why is it that possible?
Yeah, I can't answer that, but I do know the sun is a massive plasma ball. And I'm very interested in plasma, because plasma is the fourth state of matter and it behaves differently.
You know, Bill, it's amazing you brought that up, because just the last tidbit that I was talking about with the Berkeley currents and Anthony Patch speaking about how we're going to be going through the toroidal ring that the Large Hadron Collider makes with the awake, and he said that what happens is they reflect it off of the moon. So you're point of bringing up the sun is spot on, no pun intended. We must have other questions. We must have other, yes,
I
yes.
do, I have one question. You have been saying, you sound like the Godfather, you can keep your enemies closer.
I think I am like the Godfather now.
I think, yeah. Do you have specific names? Because military is a blanket term. Branches, who do we look for?
Well, it's in this next book, I spend some time on going through the various agencies that have arisen actually in the last 15 years that I think are primary. Of course, we all know about the NSA, and we know about NASA to a degree, and NOAA, etc. But there are other agencies now that are very involved in this, particularly in the Project Cloverleaf, the geoengineering that's going on. And I don't think it's who you look for, because this is a hydra with a lot of heads. Cut off one head and two more will grow. So I wouldn't worry about who. I would be more interested in what it is and how its configurations work. Like how are the satellites controlled? Who controls the satellites? What is the role of the telecom industry in military weaponizing of the weather, of telephone poles, of Gwen towers and cell towers. It's more studying the military-industrial complex to really understand how they work together. And because it's kind of like we've had this president for the last 8 years. I don't think any president runs the country anymore, not since John Kennedy tried to, and we saw what happened to him. So I don't think it's a who question, I think it's a what and how does it work.
Yes.
Can these pulses, can they read your mind, your thoughts?
What forces? You mean the ones that the planetary?
He said the pulses.
Oh, the pulses. Yes. Oh, yes. They can. Yeah, that has a name. That's the brain-computer interface, BCI, and it's also called synthetic telepathy. It's also, then if you hear the voices, it's V2K, voice to skull. These have been around since the 1970s, and there are hundreds of thousands of victims being tortured right now, experimentally by our government and the corporations that they contract with to do this. Oh yeah.
But they have there's the capability to manipulate anybody's mind. The 7 billion humans on the planet right now, above ground at least.
Yes, and I think what they're working on with the infrastructure of the space fence on the ground is they're setting it up for collective events, like a hologram in the sky, and you're hearing the voice of Jesus and Mary in your head, or Buddha, or Muhammad, or whoever.
So this could be potentially setting the stage for a false flag alien invasion or something like that nature?
Yeah, there's that theory as well. Exactly, because the hologram capability with the barium in the sky is tremendous. I call it the sky theater now. I have a Facebook group that contacts me called What is in Our Skies, and they're seeing some extraordinary things in the sky. And I don't know if they're real or if they're holographs. You see, that's the thing. It's like somebody can tell me about aliens and ships and everything, but I don't know if it's a hologram or not. I suspend judgment.
We actually took a look at the Chinese clip.
Right,
so we were prepared for that as well. So, getting back to the military, you have said that you termed them manipulated. Again, referencing David Icke, he said that he believes there's a true ET military infiltration. Do you care to speak to that?
Well, it depends how you define ET, doesn't it?
Yes.
I certainly believe that, with quantum physics, I think it's evident that we have some parallel dimensions that are all sort of interlaced, and that now, I think Rudolf Steiner would have put it that the threshold is thinning. I think that there is a threshold between us in this 3D world, this three-dimensional world, with time, and that we've been sort of protected from other dimensions so that we can develop. And now, through this technology and possibly other things that I don't know about, this threshold is thinning, and perhaps another dimension or two are leaking through now. And if that's true, and certainly Anthony has lots of ideas on that, and CERN, of opening portals and inviting beings in, and he's a Christian, so he has a certain way of looking at it, and I don't know, it could be right. So when you're talking about ETs running the military officers or government, I would say that I'm completely willing to believe that if that a person can give over their humanity to an entity that is not human, is a consciousness that doesn't have morality, doesn't have to deal with that because that's not their dimension, it's not in their dimension. That's very possible. I mean, I believe in possession. I know a lot about MK Ultra because I studied it for years in order to write my Sub Rosa America books. I know a lot of victims of MK Ultra who are recovering. So something gets inside you. A man who's addicted to pornography on the net, he's a done deal because something's going to get inside him and drive him. And drive him away from his own humanity. So in that way, if that were the ET, yes, I entirely believe that's possible.
All right. Well, sadly, we have to wrap it up, but this has been really a treat, especially with how under the gun you are for the end of the book. So thank you very much. This has really been a treat for us.
Well, thank you.
Yes, good luck for pulling it together, and I'm sure many of us are going to be reading it here. and really, blessings on you for doing this work. Yeah.
Blessings on you.
All right.
Thank you. I'm going to make a couple announcements that I think you folks will find interesting. We have a very special local guest who's going to be addressing our group in December. It's Jennifer Stein. She's the director for Mainline UFON, and she's willing to come down and share with us and our group. She doesn't want to do it by Skype, and she's suggesting 3 subjects that she'd like to share with the group. She recently completed a documentary on Travis Walton. It was very well received. She also has done a piece on crop circles, which Dr. Fred had seen and highly recommended. And she said she could also do a presentation on the Turkish city of Göbekli Tepe. Yeah. And she said she's willing to talk on any of those subjects. She's a world traveler. She's really renowned. And Dr. Fred mentioned our group to her, and I've been in contact with her, and she's willing to come down and do that. So that's going to be for December. Also, this...
Wait, do you meet in December? I thought you...
December 19th, yes.
Oh.
It's the last meeting that we could have here in December. So we'll be meeting then.
Okay.
Also, real quick, I want to tell you that this Friday night on Jeff Rentz's show, a very special individual is going to be giving a presentation for the first time. He's somebody that Major Filer had met. He's an ex-FBI agent. He's ex-Navy, ex-Coast Guard. And he sent me a slideshow of his experiences as a child at the age of 3 or 4 with extraterrestrials.
and in Vietnam, and he's going to talk about the FBI's Private X files and a lot of other revelations. And I posted on our meetup website about deep space disclosure, Gaia TV with Jay Widener, and I've been in touch with Jay Widener. He's a documentary filmmaker. The whistleblower information is coming out from Corey Good, from Bill Tompkins, from Dr. Robert Wood. They're putting together a television series called Deep Space Disclosure, and they're going to not wait for the military. They're going to use all the testimony of the whistleblowers to come forward and start sharing.
Is this going to be on cable TV?
It's going to be on cable TV, and also a friend of mine in California has gotten a moral history about Bobby Reid and the Admiral who's been involved with UFOs. Bill Tompkins said he's up to his eyebrows with it. I was talking to Jay Widener, and he's putting together a documentary based on that. And I have the work history posted on our website, so you can read it. It's probably like 30 pages. A lot of information. Thanks, guys.
What time do we have to be out of here?
We have to physically be out of here by 8:15, they said.
Yeah, that's a new rule.
It's a new policy.
I wish I would have known that.
Sorry. Yeah, so.
No, that's correct. What you missing?
I just got
Me,
rounds.
I'm waiting for
Go back to close.